second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity is...
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of PvA Radio. I am one of your hosts, Luke Croft, and joining me as always, freelance gaming journalist Cody Mellokline. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Also joining us, coming in hot this evening, Larry Hunt.
Hello.
He
I'm
came
ready
in
to stream, boys.
He came in sprinting, boys and girls. So sorry, we're a couple. Did we make it? I don't think we made it. What time is it? Oh, it's 3 after.
9:33.
We almost made it.
It's all my fault. Fire me.
You're fired. You're getting paid half of what you got paid last week.
Crap.
Guys,
calculate that.
Hold on, carry the one. It's still more than the points that he has in Two Truths and a Gaming Live. So,
Spicy.
Guys, this is PvA Radio. We get together each and every week, and each of us over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio, each one of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories of the week to the table. Then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article, or your CAFA, if you will. And Cody, what do we want people to do with that?
Spam that emote and go to Larry's house and tattoo him with it.
Oh, Jesus, sir.
Please. If it's free, absolutely.
And if you can't catch us live over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you can catch the VOD over on youtube.com/PvA Radio or listen to us on podcast services everywhere. And wherever you're listening to us, we greatly appreciate it. Just go ahead and subscribe, leave a rating. Perhaps some kind words would be very, very welcome as well. So, all right, guys. Let's jump into it real quick, get some housekeeping out of the way. I was a guest host on Project Esports over on Monday. We talked a little bit about the Nate Nanzer leaving Overwatch League news. We talked about the gaming addiction stuff. So definitely go check that out. Just search Project Esports. We'll also link to the episode in the description of this episode so that you can find it easily. Really fun time I had over there chatting with those guys. Also, starting this week, we've been streaming every night starting at 9 over on this channel with a little show called the PvA Nightly Rundown, which is where I go over all of the gaming news that you may have missed through the day so that you don't look like a freaking idiot at the water cooler the next day when somebody wants to play Mario Maker 2 with you off of their friends list online because they can't. So come out. Check that out. It's a lot more kind of free form, interacting with the chat a lot more than we do over here when we're doing PvA Radio. So you don't want to miss that. We've also got some E3 plans in the pipeline, including a special crowdsourced episode of E3 predictions. So the way that this is going to work is rather than us bringing our own predictions to the table, we want to source them from our community. And we're going to be partnering up with the guys over at Popped Off who do Project Esports with their community, bringing them as well. And what we'll do is we'll put out one of the crowdsourced ones, and then we'll talk about the likelihood of whether or not that is going to happen. So we don't care how outlandish your E3 predictions may be, we still want to hear them. How can you submit them? You can either go to playerversusall.com/PVAQ, submit them through the form that we have there, or you can join our Discord server. If you're over here on Twitch, just type !Discord, get the link, and then there's a specific channel that you can drop them in there called E3 Predictions or something like that. If you're listening on podcast services and you want to join the Discord, you can do so on the link in the description below. So we're recording that next Thursday live over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio. It's going to be a party. There's going to be like 5 of us on it, so it's going to be like the old Player 3 podcast days back when we had 1 million people.
Is Gary coming?
Gary might make a guest appearance. I think he's made a full recovery. So
excellent.
All right, I don't know if Cody knows anything about Gary.
We've talked about Gary before.
Nah,
I know his mod.
He's shaking his head. So all right, guys, I think that's all the housekeeping. We got all the counters clean and cabinets straight.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic.
All leveled.
All leveled. Cody gets that hardcore cleaning in. He busts the level out just to make sure there's
got to, man.
Not even a little bit of dust left.
It's not OCD. It's functional.
Understandable. All right, guys, let's jump into it though. Get this week started like we get every week started with what have you been playing? Cody, what have you been playing?
I'm continuing to play Plague Tale. Still thoroughly enjoying it. It's still not very challenging, I would say. I don't think there's been a super big difficulty ramp. I think I'm on chapter, I want to say 11. So I think I'm more than halfway through the game based on the amount of chapters there are. And I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. The atmosphere of that game is awesome. And I love the environment design. It's very brutal. There are some parts of that game that are just really brutal. But I'm really enjoying that. And then I'm continuing to work my way through the Assassin's Creed Odyssey DLC, and I've gotten into the Atlantis part of the DLC, where things just go off the fucking rails, and they just really indulge in the craziness of the Assassin's Creed universe, and I love it. Kind of like how Origins had its kind of mythological part of the DLC. This is now, I'm in that section of Odysseys, and as someone who loves Greek mythology and all that, it's just like every single thing I'm turning around and seeing is like itching that scratch. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that, and I'm in you go to like Elysium, or like a projection of Elysium, like paradise, and the way they've visualized it is just awe-inducing. It's incredible. I don't think that the team behind that game gets enough credit for the visual design of the world. But it's really cool.
Have you given birth yet?
I did. That was in the end of the last DLC.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you can call it that.
Yes, if you can call it that.
Cool.
Not bitter about that at all.
How much more DLC content do you have for that game?
So I'm working through the first chapter of the second set of DLC. So there's the First Blade, and then there's Atlantis. I think those are the only two that they're releasing. And so they're going to be there are 3 episodes of First Blade, which I've done, 3 episodes of Atlantis. I'm on the first episode of Atlantis, and their second one just came out. I don't know when the third one is coming out, but it doesn't really matter because I'm still working my way through the other 2, and they're pretty beefy.
All right, awesome. Larry, what have you been playing?
Fallout 76.
Oh shit!
What is wrong with you?
And I've had a blast with it.
Oh no!
So I mean, they finally have the game in like a stable state. If you were put off by the bugs, that's not an issue anymore. If you were put off by all the corporate decisions, well, those still happened. If you were put off by the story being about a dead environment, that's still an issue. But for me, I just love the dungeon crawling aspect. I really enjoy the like sorting through this dead world and reading everything to find out what happened. And I get that that's not for everybody, but I'm really enjoying it. I've played twice. I just want to share 2 quick stories. One, the first night I was on, a random guy showed up dressed as close to Spider-Man as he could get, and just really helped me out, helped me get going again, gave me a bunch of ammo. It was awesome.
Spider-Man.
And it inspired me. So the next day I decided that, you know, I've been thinking, how can I role play this game? Because I love reading these cool stories. And in the old Fallout games, there was a perk where when you went into VATS and it was slow motion, you could have the mysterious stranger show up randomly and help you out. So I decided I'm going to dress like the mysterious stranger, and that's going to be my thing. Once I get leveled up, I'm going to swoop in, save people, and then just vanish. And so I bought the outfit. They had the outfit, the Silver Shroud outfit for sale. I put it on, and I had a night full of coincidences. This night I decided to pursue the vigilante path. I come across a side quest where you find an old abandoned compound where this woman was secretly training an army of vigilantes to protect the wasteland. And it's like a cool side quest. It's like an old guild from Oblivion, from Elder Scrolls, and I guess they had those in Fallout. I haven't played a lot of Fallout, but I'm an initiate in the Order of Mystery currently. But it ramped up the coincidence. So I'm Larry Hunt. I'm from Beckley, West Virginia, and it pairs you with a mentor. And I'm sure this story ends with when I finally meet up with my mentor, it's just a corpse. But my mentor is Natasha Hunt from Beckley, West Virginia.
Okay, you texted me about this last night, and I had no clue what you were talking about.
Yeah, I didn't lead off with this cool thing happened in Fallout. I just pretended you knew what I was talking about.
Well, Natasha Hunt from Beckley, West Virginia sounds like it could be IRL. So, is the character, you didn't name the character?
No. Like that is the character if you pursue this path.
Just a total coincidence.
Yeah, it was really funny.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So if you hop back in Fallout, I'll be saving your life soon. As soon as I get good.
You know,
Apparently, I just leave bags of poop on people's beds.
Going back to an earlier point that you made, when I think about what more multiplayer games need, it's more lore being communicated through me having to read a bunch of stuff. So that's what I'm looking for in any kind of multiplayer experience. Having to tell the rest of my party to hold up while I read this book.
Well, if the Division has taught me anything, it's that it doesn't matter how you communicate it in a multiplayer game. You just
That's true. That's true. Mad Brock says that is a cool storyline. He did it long ago. So
yes.
I was out of town for quite a while this weekend, so I didn't get much of a chance to play anything outside of the stuff I play on Switch. A lot of Rocket League, a lot of Arena of Valor, a little bit of Diablo 3 still. Real sad news, Tencent's about to... scuff streamer, I didn't switch the scene back. Tencent is going to be dropping support for Arena of Valor, guys, because they're focusing their attention on mobile League of Legends. So we can only hope that means League of Legends is coming to the Switch, and my transformation into full-on PC dork can be complete.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll have to find new friends, I guess. So, because of the judgmental
100%.
looks that you guys give me.
Look, if you think I just started judging you, I'm sorry that I failed to communicate it.
No, that's true. Very good point. I have gotten quite a bit of chance to play some Overwatch on PC, and I've had a couple of good nights the last couple nights I've played. I'm starting to climb again. Feeling a little bit more like myself. I've got my settings down, mouse and keyboard starting to feel a lot more natural to me. Now, if I go back to play on console, I'm going to be like, how did I ever do this? How did I press all these buttons? I'm still having fun with that. I don't think my love for Overwatch is ever gonna end at this point. And the league comes back tomorrow, so very excited about that as well.
I love the skins in this event. It's been really tempting for me to jump back in, but instead I jumped back into Fallout. I don't know what's happening in my life.
The anniversary events are awesome because it really is just them being like, we really don't have an event where this skin fits, so let's just throw it in here. You've got Gargoyle Winston and Car Hop May. Like, how do those connect?
I feel like Gargoyle Winston could be a Halloween skin, but Car Hop May, I don't know.
Well, everything's a costume at Halloween, right? So they could technically all be Halloween skins. All right.
I guess.
Moving on.
Every event is Halloween now.
All right, moving on, guys. Let's jump into our topics. Cody, I'm going to let you kick us off. What are you bringing to the table for us this week?
All right. I have a story of Twitch, and as it just so happens, because we were talking about the absolutely abysmal viewer numbers of this game last week, Artifact.
Cody launched a campaign to bring those numbers.
I'd like to think that we had a little bit of an effect on this story, and I'd like to think I would be absolutely horrified if we did.
Yeah, me too. I would like to disconnect myself from all those previous statements made.
Exactly. We'll just scrub that episode from YouTube.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is over the long weekend, the Memorial Day weekend, a meme quickly spiraled out of control. And the meme was about Artifact and how it's like just absolute, in terms of viewership, it's just absolute trash. It's really small, but there are people watching. It's just a really small, dedicated community. People started joking about it, and those jokes quickly escalated into people en masse streaming this game, and not really streaming it. They were just streaming under the Artifact category. Some people were streaming other games, but an unfortunate amount of people were streaming really, really terrible, like distasteful content, kind of the worst of the internet. Like everything from pirated media to like really hardcore porn to racist propaganda. And I think Polygon noted that there was even one instance of someone streaming the footage from the Christchurch, New Zealand terrorist attack, which is absolutely horrifying. And Twitch addressed the situation by essentially removing the ability for new creators to stream for a period of time, because the majority of accounts that were streaming, quote unquote, streaming artifact content were automated accounts. So this was their solution to that. Per a statement from Twitch in Polygon's reporting of this, over the weekend we became aware of a number of accounts targeting the artifact game directory to share content that grossly violates our terms of service. Our investigations uncovered that the majority of accounts that shared and viewed the content were automated accounts. We are working with urgency to remove the offending content and suspend all accounts engaged in this behavior. And so part of that was suspending new creators, suspending the ability to stream content. They were also suspending people who were streaming inappropriate content on a case-by-case basis. But as Polygon noted, at least as early as I guess yesterday evening, Tuesday evening, there was still a lot of non-artifact content under the artifact category, and there were, at least at the time of Polygon's reporting, over 11,000 viewers in the directory. And so this I think is an interesting point of conversation. I think it's useful to start off talking about this specific incident, but I do want to talk about kind of the ramifications this has for Twitch and for streaming in general. I don't think we need to all address like the situation itself, like what people were streaming, because I think we all probably agree that it's absolutely horrifying and horrendous, and not something we endorse. But what do you guys think about Twitch's response to this behavior, suspending new creators from streaming? It's obviously a very extreme response, but it was an attempt to address a situation that was getting out of control very quickly.
I think that even before we get to what their temporary solution is, because let's face it, at the end of the day, it's a temporary solution.
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to come a time where those accounts will be old enough to stream. I do want to talk about the timeline in which it took Twitch to do something about this.
Yes, that's important.
And maybe not even just to do something about it, but even to address that they were trying to do something about it. I understand that in order to mobilize and push live a change like this, where accounts have to be X amount of days or however old in order to stream, that takes resources. But stuff was coming out about the artifact category, as early as like Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And it's almost like Twitch literally had nobody in the office over Memorial Day weekend. And it wasn't until Tuesday came around that they like logged in and were like, oh shit, there's something going on our platform. And I think that even if it would have taken that long to deploy a change that could have helped alleviate it, Twitch should have been much more on the ball with communicating, hey, we're aware and we're working on a solution. It still would have gotten just as out of hand, but I just think Twitch has all the resources in the world now, right? They're owned by Amazon. Like they need to be quicker on the draw to address these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reading about this story, I know that it's probably not what happened, but I was like, I genuinely wonder, was literally nobody in a department to handle this in the office? Was everybody off on Memorial Day weekend?
I can literally see them having a chain of command that requires a certain level of executive signing off on a decision like that, and that executive not being in the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Just removing the key players for the weekend. I was also confused by how out of hand it got, because I was always under the impression that if I showed my nipples on Twitch, I'd be gone in 5 seconds. But at the end of the day, I guess you do have actual humans policing this So, as far as the short-term solution goes, I just don't know what else you do. It's extreme, but nuking the new accounts, like from where I'm sitting, that's what makes the most sense. But that dovetails into long-term solution. I don't know what you do to prevent it from ever happening again. If you leave this in place and require accounts to mature a bit before they can stream, like it would I think that is a hurdle that would it would cause it to be too much trouble to organize. I think like you'd have to have a lot of advanced planning. Like I don't think a meme could spiral into this very easily again. But the drawbacks to that, it would really suck to just have to function as a Twitch viewer for even like a week before you could start streaming. But long term, I don't know much about this, and I don't know what you do to prevent it.
Yeah, so much of the Twitch platform and creators on Twitch, like their first engagement, like their first time streaming is really impulsive. You know, I think about like, and now that it's so accessible in that you don't need additional hardware in order to stream, it's just if you own a PS4, you own something powerful enough to stream. You own an Xbox One, you can stream directly from it. Part of the power of that is, oh, what is this Twitch thing that I can open? Or, oh, what does this share button on my PlayStation do? And you're in and you can immediately start streaming and you can catch the bug for it. Like, and so I don't think that this is the long-term solution for Twitch because it kind of goes against the grain of at least a portion of the model that they've set out to get new creators interested in the platform.
Yeah, I think extending this solution or expanding it to kind of as a site-wide solution would kind of stymie a lot of creators, as you guys have said. I think part of the appeal of the platform is that it's open to anybody. It's accessible to anybody. It's really easy to get started. It's hard to go in for the long haul, but if you just want to be streaming every now and again, you're as you said, Larry, if you're just an average kind of like casual streamer, your account isn't gonna mature quickly enough to be recognized under whatever this new definition would be. So I think they're as far as a short-term solution, I agree. I think it was probably the only solution that worked at the time. But it does sort of raise questions for me about, I don't think this is going to be an isolated incident. I think things like this quickly catch on and can become a problem. And I think they're probably currently thinking of ways to manage that problem in the future. The thing I'm worried about is I do think there's a really important, one of the things that I love about Twitch is that it not only allows for streaming categories for the massive games like Fortnite, but it does have categories for these smaller games as long as there are people out there streaming them, and around those games can kind of arise small dedicated communities that find a place to enjoy the game that they like. Artifact, I guess, is one of those games, but there are a lot more that don't have kind of the publisher, the developer, a publisher developer like Valve behind them. So I think there's an important place on Twitch for these smaller communities and smaller categories. What I worry is that those could quickly become kind of like here breeding grounds for some content that doesn't have a place on Twitch and shouldn't have a place on Twitch. They kind of become hidey holes for that stuff. That's what I'm really worried about coming out of this situation.
Yeah, and from a parenting / working with kids perspective, I've had conversations with parents multiple times over the years about what's this Twitch thing my kid is looking at, and I'm always like, well, it's pretty heavily policed as far as what people do. Especially back in the day, I would always jokingly throw in, even if a dude takes his shirt off, like they get nuked pretty quick. All you got to worry about is the content of the game that's being streamed. But now that this story has happened, like, it has to be, well, there was this one time where a horrible thing went unchecked for a couple of days. So already I think this will shake some of their viewership in the younger audience for the 5 kids whose parents are paying attention to what they're doing online. But so you definitely don't want to see a pattern develop on that front, because I would imagine a big chunk of their audience is kids.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think the answer lies in the category structure, because I'm with you, Cody. I think that that's such a that's such a pivotal part of the platform, and being able to quickly find what it is that you're looking for. And so I talked about this last night on the PvA nightly rundown at 9 p.m. Eastern time every weekday except for Wednesdays on twitch.tv/PvA radio. Come don't look like a dummy at the water cooler. So I've had, yeah, just a slight plug. I've had some time to think though about possible solutions to this, and I think this is what I've arrived at. I think in order to stream, you should be required to validate a phone number, and then you can create as many accounts as you want on that phone number, right? So, like for us, for instance, right, like. I may have the PvA radio. Maybe I want a personal one. Like, I'd be able to do that all on the same number, but it requires that I actually give a phone number and I'm able to validate. But if one of my another thing about Twitch is like it's really hard to get hard banned on Twitch.
Yeah,
Twitch hands out a lot of suspensions. Getting banned on Twitch is kind of a big deal. It's not like Sony, where you have one chargeback on your account and all of a sudden your account gets nuked. So I would say if you have an account on that phone number that gets banned, you can't use that phone number anymore to create another account. And any other accounts you've created with that phone number, they get banned as well. I don't know if that's a realistic system, but I think it's and obviously, look, there's always going to be workarounds. You can create burner phone numbers in order to create accounts. But at the end of the day, it's like a lock door, right? Like locks keep honest people honest. Like there's always going to be a way to kick in a door and get inside. But make it as hard as you can. Make it a deterrent for people to do these kinds of things. And for me, I think that's they've already got two-factor authentication built in, so there's already an element of submitting your phone number and validating who you are. But I think this idea, and I think this on all social media platforms, this idea that you just have to shoot me an email and I click a link and it can be a free email address and I can have as many of them as I want, like the anonymity that we create online for ourselves, while in some ways is not necessarily a bad thing, I think it's been weaponized far too much in far too many different ways now for us to really let it stand anymore. I think we need to start doing something about it, and this is a perfect example of why.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that about the internet in general, but with Twitch specifically, I definitely do. It's a platform where you are streaming yourself playing a game, and I don't see the need for anonymity there. And I get that there are some people that aren't comfortable like showing their faces or letting their voices be heard or whatever, but I just like a channel's not going to take off if you are not present on it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's no need for anonymity on this platform whatsoever.
Yeah, it's actually side. Yeah, it's funny, Luke. I had actually come to the same conclusion in terms of a solution, because I think you are right. You're already essentially giving, in terms of two-factor authentication, you're already giving them your phone number, and I think the harm that can be done via a platform like Twitch is far greater than on a lot of platforms, just based on the content that can, as we've seen, slip through the cracks. And I think I think it'll turn some people off if you would have to give your phone number, but I think most people would be willing to part with that information because they already are to a certain extent, and because anonymity is a lot less of a factor when it comes to Twitch. I just think, like, in terms of the risk cost analysis of this platform, I think a phone number could be a way to kind of, as you said, kind of like siphon out the bad apples and get the actual honest people to get to the platform, or can stay on the platform.
And look, I'd be totally cool with, you can create an account and not authenticate your phone number and be able to like follow and chat and do that sort of stuff. But in order to stream, you have to validate. If we're going to allow you to in real time broadcast the things that you are doing, the least we can ask you to do is give your phone number. And Larry, to your point, I want to make it clear. I don't mean every platform we need to show our face and have our name. I think back-end anonymity on these sites is just if you're going to create a Facebook account, you should be able to validate that you're an actual human being before creating that account. I think even on Facebook, to an extent, given that it's like a personal platform and it's supposed to be about connecting with family and friends, and that's the line they continuously give when talking about any kind of, you know, controversy that comes up. Oh, well, Facebook is a platform to connect with family and friends. I think there should be a level of using your real name on a platform that's designed to do that. Now, Twitter, whatever. Twitter's the Wild West. Nobody understands that anyway. I think that back-end anonymity should not be a thing on any of these platforms. We should constantly be being asked to validate that we are actual human beings.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Just like I think about Arab Spring several years back, or people living under governments like China, where if those governments were able to get access to that information, then it would be like life-threatening for certain people. But you know, then it just becomes that's not the platform for them to communicate with. But so I have to put more thought into it. But currently, I don't agree. But I do agree on the Twitch side for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have anything else left to analyze on this topic. I think we'll start to. I think this will be a continuing issue and a continuing. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Before
Sorry.
we transition away, obviously Twitch isn't the only live streaming service, and I'm not just talking about games, but you know, Periscope, whatever. I don't know off the top of my head, but are you guys aware of any of those other services having to deal with this, or how they've addressed it? I've never seen a story like this pop up in my feeds.
I'm not aware of it, at least happening at this scale. I think that's the thing with Twitch. It's the scale of it.
And it's centralized. I think
exactly. Yeah.
I think in a lot of those platforms, you don't have the centralized discoverability within it, where like we can commandeer an entire category, because you know there's all kinds of horror stories about shit that's live broadcast on Facebook and stuff like that with Facebook Live, but that's not a category. It's not being done on a category that your entire user base can go to and click. Sure, it can be shared out, but it's not like this centralized thing that, like you said, Cody, it becomes just like a nest for these things to grow.
Yeah. I think the accessibility of Twitch is both a gift and a curse in something like this.
Yeah. Thanks. I hadn't thought about that. That does make a difference.
All right. Moving on. Let's talk about Death Stranding, guys.
Let's do it.
I was really excited to like talk about how I finally understood what it was, but I'm still not there.
But here we are,
I
guys.
don't think any of us are there yet.
So a couple days ago, Hideo Kojima started tweeting out like snippets of a video with things like "create the rope" and just very Kojima-esque, really enigmatic.
Yeah, this is the most Kojima-esque story ever.
We are getting full on Kojima untethered right now, and I am not sure how to feel about it. So a couple days of little snippets of video on Twitter, and then yesterday, the PlayStation Twitch account went live in the Death Stranding category with just like looping video that was being veiled by these like tar handprints on the screen, or oil handprints. And as it went on, it was less and less obscured. And then finally today they released an 8-minute reveal trailer that showed what the game is about. And revealed that it will be coming out on November 8th, 2019. So I trust that we all had a chance to watch the trailer, correct? We good?
Multiple times.
We've all watched it. All right, fantastic.
I only watched it once, to be fair.
Did it get any clearer the second time, Cody?
A little bit, but much like the post, it was obscured by a lot of black handprints.
Yes, clear as mud, as a professor of mine used to say. So let me just get you guys' initial reactions on the Death Stranding trailer in and of itself, and then I want to kind of scope out from there.
Kojima definitely made this game. It's very weird. I'm intrigued. I'm not a PlayStation guy. This isn't going to get me to buy a PlayStation, but I can't wait to watch someone else stream it and just figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah. If you were to create a bingo sheet of everything that you would think is in a Kojima game, it is in this trailer. Military outfits, paramilitary forces, stealth gameplay, his favorite people. So that's Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, Guillermo del Toro, Nicholas Winding Refn, all of whom play parts in this game. Just like it reeks of Kojima. And the best part, I think, I'm still kind of on the fence of whether that's a good thing or not. But I think it is glorious to behold because it's just unadulterated. It's, if you ever want to see a person's mind displayed on the screen, this is the closest I think you will come to seeing that. So my reaction to the trailer itself, like Larry, I'm really intrigued. I think, like, I don't know, this clarified some things. It left me with more questions, I think, which every reveal has left me with. It did actually show a surprising amount of gameplay, but each piece isolated does not exactly tell the story of what this game is in its entirety. Like, you're on a motorcycle, you're sneaking through grass, you're punching the shit out of dudes in a field. You're
who have flamethrowers they're not using, I think.
Yeah, you're building a ladder and like traversing the environment with things you pull out of your pack, and then just all the stuff that is going to be hours and hours of cutscenes, which still is just a sketch of a plot. It's just like everything about this game is overwhelming, and I don't even know if it's in the best possible way, but it's overwhelming. So I'm still kind of sorting through it, but I am starting to get a clearer picture of, or I thought I was getting a clearer picture of what the gameplay is, and then Kojima dropped an explanation that seems to hint at some interconnected multiplayer experience too, which is what this game is about. It's about connections and ropes and tethers and bridges. By the way, the main character's last name is Bridges.
For somebody as like mysterious as Kojima, he has a real knack for being super on the nose about certain things.
Oh, dude, the names you could write an entire essay about the names he chooses to give to his characters and how absolutely blunt they are. But I'm very intrigued. I'm very interested, and we'll talk about the release date as well, which is coming up very quickly.
One of the characters in this game is called Fragile. Like, you see her crying a lot, and her name is Fragile.
So I want to read a little exchange that we had on Discord in reaction to this trailer. I said, so the babies are old babies, kept alive in a fetal state because they provide vision into a demon shadow world. When hooked up to the scanner, it allows Norman Reedus to see to the other side. And then Cody replied, that's part of it, I think. Then there's all this stuff about a paramilitary force that's taken over the US, and there are some people that can move in between the shadow world and our reality. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. And it's so... I have never cared less about a game, about announcements for a game that I know I'm going to play.
Yes.
Because, look, all this lead up, like, look, was I excited for another trailer? Yes. But I had no thought that I was going to understand what was going on in this thing when it released, because it's clear that that's not the intent of the marketing around it. So much of the conversation that's revolving around it is about the mystery of it. And if we start answering questions now, what is this game? What is this game? Then we're going to lose a lot of the conversation that's been going on around it, I think. And so they're going to leave this conversation in place until the day it releases. And we can migrate into that conversation now, because November 8th, 2019 is slap dab in the middle of holiday season, release season. It's a time of the year that Sony really hasn't touched this entire generation. They haven't felt really beholden to that kind of time. And I find it very, very interesting that they're taking something as quirky and relatively niche as a Kojima produced game and throwing it down in an area dominated by really big IP names, right?
If there was ever a year to gamble against Call of Duty, though, it's this one.
I don't know, man. Modern Warfare is still a really big name. So,
but they didn't call it Modern Warfare. So,
which Big mistake.
Missed opportunity.
Those cowards. I don't know how much I like the release date, man. I think it's cool that we're getting this so soon, allegedly. But I think for a game as weird as this and as mysterious as this, you kind of need to give it its own space to breathe. And I don't think holiday season is the time to do that.
I agree with that. I don't have anything to add. It's just a weird game, and it needs some breathing room.
I guess it's sort of maybe it's a hint at the confidence that Sony has in the game. I mean, Kojima is a massive name in this industry, and I think even if he's not, if you see like Norman Reedus is a massive name, Mads Mikkelsen less so. I'm actually more excited about Mads Mikkelsen personally because I'm a fan of his career. But I think there's a huge potential to grab an audience with this game. But I agree. I don't know if it's surrounded by the most massive mainstream games in the market, and we'll probably hear about even more games that are being launched in that window after E3. I'm also just not 100% sure that it will actually be released on November 8th. I think Kojima has a track record of delays, and I don't think that's 100% on him. I think it's also a large part of what his relationship was with Konami at the time, and probably what they were mandating and what they were pushing. But I would not be surprised to see this release date slip. It's not even that I don't think the game is ready. I think there's a really great tweet that Jason Schreier had today. Someone being flippant about the fact that like, oh, Kojima only revealed his game 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2016. Only revealed his game 3 years ago, and he's already releasing this masterpiece. What is everybody else doing? And Jason Schreier's like, well, he didn't have to create his engine. He found it. Mm-hmm. He's been able to interact with some of the greatest developers on the planet about this, and he is one of the biggest names in the industry and can attract the best talent. It's not like he's at a disadvantage. He's automatically at an advantage in terms of where he can be at with his game in a certain amount of time. But I do still think that there will be a delay with this game, and what that means in Sony's release calendar is much more significant than what it would mean in Konami's release calendar, which I think will be interesting. Yeah,
well, first of all, big ass eye roll from my end on he's already going to release this masterpiece. Like, let's stop with just we're talking on this podcast. We still have no idea what this game is. It looks awesome. Like in terms of visually, it looks awesome. Visually, it looks awesome, but I thought, just technically speaking, like a lot of the movement still looked real janky in the trailer.
Well, the movement in Metal Gear Solid 5 was kind of stylized, I would say. There were parts of this trailer that, like the transition from, like when he was running from those soldiers and suddenly they're just like not hitting him and he's like dodging and then he chooses to attack them, looked really weird.
Yeah.
Not like something you'd show off in a trailer like this, but I mean, there's still months of development left.
Yeah, I am interested because it looks a lot less focused on combat, at least in everything that we've seen thus far. It's more about traversal and even some of the stuff that like I can't pull it up here. You sent it to me on Discord, Cody, but I'd love for you to read what Kojima actually said about what the game is about. And while you're getting that real quick, I'm gonna touch on your release date stuff.
Go for it.
I do think I'm pretty confident in the November 8th release, given how this is apparently impacting The Last of Us's release and
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, and Ghost of Tsushima. Jason Schreier coming out saying that The Last of Us 2 is coming in the spring. It's slated for the spring. I don't think Sony are the people to trifle with and say, hey, we need another like 4 months for this game. You mind pushing literally every other game people are looking forward to back so that we can, get ours out? I don't see that happening.
Sorry, I just pulled it up.
Go for it.
And this is stuff that he's been saying for a while, so it's not exactly new, but it was just great to see it all in one place. And this is, again, some of the most Kojima language you can possibly think of. People have created walls, capitalized and in quotations, and become accustomed to living in isolation. Death Stranding is a completely new type of action game where the goal of the player is to reconnect isolated cities in a fragmented society. It is created so that all elements, including the story and gameplay, are bound together by the theme of the strand, or connection. As Sam Porter bridges, you will attempt to bridge the divides in society and in doing create new bonds or strands with other players around the globe. This is what I was talking about before. Through your experience playing the game, I hope you'll come to understand the true importance of forging connections with others. So that seems, like you were saying, Luke, that indicates a certain de-emphasizing of combat, which I think is something that's kind of been consistent in Kojima's career. Like, Metal Gear Solid is notable for the fact that you don't engage in combat that much. And it's more about kind of stealth gameplay and hiding, and it seems like from what we saw in the trailer, you're right, and it seems like a lot more about traversing the environment, running away from enemies. That we did see a little bit of gunplay and a little bit of combat, but not too much, which I'm totally on board for. That's kind of what I've been attracted to about A Plague Tale, the fact that that a lot of it isn't about engaging, a lot of it is about sidestepping encounters, which I always think is great for the medium to embrace.
Yeah. It's just, it's weird, and Kojima's weird, and I'm here for it, but I'm not here to crown him as the masterpiece maker quite yet, because I just think there's still a lot of questions. But I do think that this is, this leads to a bigger question, right? So Sony's not going to be at E3 this year. There's some indication that we're also going to be getting some news possibly soon about The Last of Us and some stuff as we're getting closer to E3. They announced a huge, summer sale today. Like, Sony's kind of been dominating the headlines between a couple different things over the last few days. Are they successfully circumventing E3 as a platform to make big splashes around this time of year?
I don't think we can know that until E3 happens. Like, will Microsoft come out swinging and drop big enough stuff that we forget about this news cycle? I don't know. But, yeah, so I guess I'm just going to land on I don't know. Because these are the kinds of announcements where when nothing else is going on, definitely you're going to make a splash. But we'll just have to wait and see if we're still talking about it in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think it's still a little too early to tell. The Death Stranding announcement is certainly a splash. Especially with the release date coming up so quickly. I think most people assumed that would be a bridge title.
I did.
See what I did there? It's all about bridges, man. It's about fucking bridges. I just, sorry, this is a tangent, but I saw a hilarious comment. Someone's like, "This is gonna be the year of the ladder, man. The year of the ladder in games." And I'm like, all right. You can have your ladders. That's fine. Enjoy that, dude.
Next Apex Legend confirmed. Uses ladders.
But I think it's a little bit too early to call whether or not they're successfully circumventing it, because I'm sure they still have a lot to announce. I'll be interested to see. Like, your rumors have been swirling about this state of play about The Last of Us 2. And for a game that we've talked about at length, people don't really want to see any more of that game. I'm curious how they'll show it off. I would have much rather seen an in-depth state of play look at Death Stranding than I would have Last of Us Part 2. But we'll see if they can continue to actually make any more splashes before E3, which is coming up way too quickly.
It's insane how quick it's coming up. And how much we already know about what's going to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that, I don't know, an 8-minute Death Stranding trailer in the middle of an event where you're going to have new hardware being announced by Microsoft. You're going to get all these mystery IPs from Ubisoft finally getting revealed. You're getting a lot of announcements coming in. You don't get nearly as much nearly as long a tail out of your announcements as you're getting here, where, I mean, you literally had a looping video for 24 hours before you decided you were going to play the 8-minute trailer, and people could not shut up about it. Like, you don't get that during the week of E3. And and while I agree, I don't think we're going to get the full picture until after E3. I do think that they are setting forth a model that I think more and more people are going to adopt. I mean, E3's already been changing in the fact that most people make their announcements before E3 and then give more information when we're there. But this is just kind of taking that to the next level, right? So this also means that The Last of Us Part 2 is releasing in the spring. We've been touching on that. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I think it would have made more sense for The Last of Us to be their holiday release, because that's, I think, even more transcendent than a Kojima Death Stranding, what the hell is this game kind of deal.
Well, it's a known quantity too.
Yeah, that as well. And I mean, am I happy it's going to get its own space to breathe? I'd rather The Last of Us have it than Death Stranding, as a fan of the Last of Us series. So how do you guys feel about the potential of The Last of Us 2 being a spring release?
I mean, it has great potential to be successful there, but I'm with you on I think that the Kojima game needed the help more, but I don't think The Last of Us will be hurt by it by any means.
No, I mean, we've obviously seen that Sony can launch a really successful game in the spring with God of War. But I think you're right. I think Death Stranding might have benefited a little bit more from being distant from other major releases. But I'm up for giving Naughty Dog more time. I will say that. And I do think it also gives Sucker Punch more time, because ostensibly then that will be released later next year. And then I think we've been talking about the PS5 or whatever it's called being launched at the tail end of next year. So it would make sense in terms of a release schedule to kind of meter them out that way.
Yeah. I think they're going with PS360.
PS 720.
Yep, got it. All right. All right, guys, let's move on. Larry, what is your topic?
So I'm talking about a little game called Apex Legends, which used to be funny, but it is increasingly more true. And that's actually what we're talking about. All that was me stalling to write timestamps. Did you like it?
Oh, nice. It was beautiful.
Until I ruined it at the end. So Apex Legend revenue is down 74% in 2 months. And I'm pulling this from an article on PC Gamer by Samuel Horty. I'm not sure how to say it. Sorry, Sam. But there's not much to the article. It's just basically that the popularity and the amount of money being spent on Apex has been declining. There's been a 74% drop in revenue, which comes with it being dropped out of the top 10 highest grossing games on PC. And that also couples with a big decline in viewership on Twitch. And I don't think that there's any mystery about why. There hasn't been a lot of new content for the game. And people, I mean, they have what they're going to get out of it currently. And there's a roadmap for the future, but as it stands, there's just not a lot to it. And we've talked on the show at first, we talked about our disappointment in the Battle Pass and what it contained, but then we all kind of felt bad about that as we discussed the situation of crunch and how that problem's finally coming to a head in the industry. And in that regard, we've all been kind of pleased with Respawn taking their time with this, giving their team enough time to crank out the game without forcing them into crunch. But I guess the conversation I want to have is, can this type of game be successful without going the slimy route that other groups, Epic, have gone, of treating employees as expendable, of pushing people into crunch, of burning people out? Do you have to do that? Do you have to grind out new content every week? Does it have to be constantly fixing bugs, constantly dropping new stuff? Or do you think that Respawn's model in the long haul can be successful?
Yeah, I think it can be successful. I think the content that you put out has to be really good. And the fact of the matter is that the content that Apex has put out has not been all that good. People were very underwhelmed by the Battle Pass that came out. We've still only received one new character since the launch of the game. Like, I think it's totally fine to. I think about a game like Destiny, right? Like, yeah, there's different patches that are being pushed week in and week out, quality of life things, but you're only getting content drops a couple times a year from a game like Destiny, and it does just fine. And so I think for a game like this, it's absolutely possible to say, we're not going to be pushing new content every 3 weeks. We're not going to take the epic route. But we are going to make sure that when we announce a season pass with a bunch of content, that it's going to be really, really quality. And we're going to take our time to make it, and you're going to see that we've taken the time to make it. I don't think we can really see the difference in quality from the time that it's taking to produce the content that we've got with Apex. I think that's more the issue than anything.
Yeah, I don't know if we've really gotten the measure of what Apex is yet, just based on one season's worth of content. What I will say is I think for the worse, Epic has trained gamers and consumers to expect a certain level of output. I think it's set a dangerous precedent, at least for the market that it exists in. Not every developer can do that. Not every developer is doing that, thankfully. But I think just the massive success Fortnite has led, we've talked about it, has led to some unfortunate working conditions at Epic, but has also kind of led for a lot of that behavior to be excusable by the massive amount of people who play the game, and for people to expect that to be the norm. And it shouldn't be the norm, and it's not the norm.
And because it's the next generation too. Like, it's not a bunch of guys our age that are playing Fortnite and having that expectation created. These are the people that are going to grow up and they're going to have even more money to spend on these games. And they're going to grow up with those expectations.
And in my experience with teenagers, very few of them are actually aware of the working conditions, regardless of how newsworthy they become. They're just not looking at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. That is concerning. So my 2 cents is I hope it will be successful, but it has given me worry of there's kind of a tightrope. You've got to be dripping enough content for people to stay interested, but you don't want to be killing people to do it. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to how the market sees it. Will people care enough about working conditions to be okay with having some time between drops, or not? And currently I think the age demographic you're going after is going to influence that. So I have no certainty on how this is going to play out, but I think we're going to come away from E3 with a lot of certainty about how it's going to play out when we see what's coming up with this game. So we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to revisit it with that tightrope in mind of dropping enough content for people to feel like it's worth it, but not killing people to produce it. What do you think they need to come out with at E3 to find success?
I think we're going to see a couple things, and we may be bleeding into some stuff I'm going to bring to the predictions table. But I think we're going to see them announce the mobile version. I think they've probably got a team just heads down working on getting a mobile version out. And that's going to be lucrative money-wise, because mobile games are just lucrative, especially in that genre. I think we're going to see a new map. We've been speculating a lot about how, this first map is named. That must mean that there's more maps to come. And then I think we're going to get at least two new character reveals as well. And then whatever the season 2 pass entails. So that's the content I expect to see. Is that enough? I don't know. I think a new map, definitely. I think from a revenue standpoint, the mobile, definitely. But yeah, I don't know. I just I orbit around Apex Legends. I don't necessarily live on that planet.
Yeah. I think we'll get a much more defined roadmap. I think I agree with most of what Luke is predicting. Map, mobile. I think the big thing will be if they can reveal enough heroes to kind of get to reinvigorate people's interest. And I'm only speaking from my personal preference and my personal experience, but whenever a new hero is announced for Overwatch, granted it works a little bit differently than it does in Apex, just like they play completely differently, but every time a new hero is announced, my interest would be reignited, and I would go back and dive into the game, even if it's just for a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. Seeing a healthy amount of like 2-3 heroes, that might be unreasonable, but seeing even 2 heroes like Luke hypothesized would be enough to kind of spark my interest, especially if one is dropped that day that they reveal it. I know people love to do like day and date drops with their announcements at E3. I could see them doing something like that.
Hey, real quick, we normally leave these for in between topics, but Bag of Tricks just dropped an 11 viewer host for us. So,
hey,
yeah, thank you so much, Bag of Tricks, and welcome to your viewers. This is PvA Radio. It's a weekly show that we do. We talk about the gaming news. We have an in-depth discussion about it. And Bag of Tricks was actually the first guest on Press Go Live. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go check out Press Go Live on podcast services. So we're going to get back to the topics, but we're going to hang out here in just a few minutes in the after party lounge. But just wanted to make sure, gave you that shout out in the beginning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, I largely agree with you guys on what Apex is going to need to drop at E3 to find success. The new map, that's going to be huge if they do that. If they drop two new characters, I think it has to be at least 2. And that is an edge that Apex has that other games like PUBG or Fortnite don't have. When your characters have particular abilities, it changes the play of the game so dramatically. And for Overwatch, that's been one of the coolest things about what keeps that game so fresh. And that's why you come back, because you know when you jump into a game where there's a new character present, it's going to play different than it did before.
And it gives people a way to connect to it on a personal level too. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a lot of people drift towards certain characters because of their personalities or their abilities, which I think is kind of cool. It gives that extra level of attachment.
And it gets outlets writing about it again too, which we keep coming back to with Fortnite. It's such a huge thing. Outlets continue to write about it because it drives traffic. I feel like with Apex Legends, these are the only kinds of stories I see anymore. Like Apex Legends revenue down 74%, Twitch viewership down X amount of percent, and like it's a real bad look for your game. So let's launch a new map, launch some new characters, and get some more positive momentum going.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd like to see that I think could add a lot of quality of life to the game is the challenges in the battle pass. I feel like that should have, like, that's the one big thing that the battle pass lacks for me. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, the prize at the end matters, but for a lot of people, it's just the give me an objective to accomplish. And so just adding that and again, having a clear roadmap, I think that's what we need to see. And if we see those things, I think the future looks bright for the game. It's just they had this launch way more successful than they anticipated, and I think they've probably been doing a lot of reeling and recovering. But I'm optimistic about what we'll see at E3.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Let's just hope that EA is patient enough with them.
That's the big thing. Is like all of this boils down to not so much what makes a game successful in our eyes. It's what makes a game successful in a company's eyes. And if you can have realistic, the way that you protect your employees is by setting realistic expectations about the revenue being generated by the game that you're producing, and that impacts us from a consumer standpoint a whole lot less.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right. Anything else you got on the Apex front?
That's it.
All right. Well, let's move on to you getting another question wrong in 2 Truths and a Gaming Lie, everybody's favorite game that we play at the end of this podcast. So the way that this works, guys, is I have a game that's very niche. People on the stream probably haven't heard of it. People in the chat definitely haven't heard of this game. I've got 3 facts about it. 2 of them are true facts. One is a false fact, fake news, if you will.
A true lie.
Yes, and our 2 contestants here have to suss out which one is the lie. One of them is pretty good at it, and one of them is not very good at it. So let's go to the scoreboard. leading the pack is me with 8 points. How do I get points? Well, if neither of these bozos can figure out which one is the lie, then I get a point. In second place with 5 points, we have Coddlesworth Coddington. And then bringing up the third, and then bringing up the rear, we have Larry Hunt the third. Wait, you're the second.
I am the second.
Yeah, sorry. With a whopping... Hold on.
Yeah, the
0
math is
points.
hard.
Yeah, 0 points.
Yeah.
You guys ready to play?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Our obscure game this week, Metal Gear Solid 5. Just to stay on theme, guys.
Yes.
And I've been picking themes as well of the kinds of trivia we've got in here. So this is all things that were cut due to time or budget constraints. All right?
I can't wait to hear.
All right, here we go. Number 1. Modifying game files on the PC version shows that child soldiers were originally going to be able to be killed, with the player receiving a hefty heroism penalty for it. Number 2. Originally, there were going to be enemy guard dogs in the game who could be able to smell and hear at ranges greater than human guards, and they could also detect you in the darkness. This would have made taking showers at Mother Base even more important, because if Snake got smelly from being out in the field too long, he'd stand out even more to the dogs. Number 3. Kojima originally commissioned the production of a 12-song album performed by voice actors who appeared throughout different games in the series. The project fell apart, and the only song that made it was Quiet's theme, performed by Stephanie Justin. All right, guys, so we've got child soldiers, smelly dogs, and voice actor album. Which one of these 3 is the gaming lie? Cody, we're going to start with you. Which one
Can
of these?
you repeat the first one? Because you kind of cut out in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah. Modifying game files on the PC version shows that child soldiers were originally going to be able to be killed, with the player receiving a hefty heroism penalty for it.
Got it. I do know the child soldiers are in that game.
So which one is the lie?
So child soldiers, dogs, and an entire album
The
of
voice
music.
actor album, yes. Do, 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 do. I need music for this part. Maybe play Stephanie Justin's Quiet theme.
I think it's Houston. She's
Houston.
Scandinavian.
My apologies.
I'm gonna go with the third one.
All right.
Although that seems the kind of indulgence that Kojima would be into.
All right. Larry, which one do you think?
All right, so things cut due to time and budget constraints. The child soldier one sounds like something you'd cut because you realize that it would be too controversial. So that seems inconsistent with time and budget constraints. I'm going to guess that one.
All right. Who gets the point this week? It would be Cody gets the point this week. Bringing the score to 8-6-0. So Cody is almost caught up to me. Larry, better luck next time, my dude. Would you have guessed? Would you have guessed number 3 if you'd have gone first? Because I know you try to.
No.
Okay. All right. So, so yes.
I don't try to mix it up at all.
Yeah, I threw the one about the album in because of exactly why Cody said he thought it could be true. It is just, it's really indulgent. So, all right, guys. I also realized I have no historical record of all of these games that we've played. I always delete it out and then just replace it. So that sucks. So if anybody wants to go back and listen to all the times we've played this game and write out all of the responses, that'd be great. All right, let's get out of here, guys. If you're hanging out with us over on twitch.tv/PvA radio, make sure you stick around for the after party lounge where we just kind of shoot the shit and hang out with the chat. But before that, who are you? Where can we find you? And what are you going to be tweeting about this week? Larry, let's start with you.
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at LarryHuntsZombies, and I'll probably be tweeting about my adventures in Fallout 76.
All right.
As the vigilante.
The vigilante.
All right, Codstan.
It's a new one. My name is not Codstan, it's Cody. And you can find me on Twitter at ProElectioneer. I will be donning my tinfoil hat and setting up my corkboard as I try to dive through Kojima's fucking nutso trailer.
I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures. It's going to be fantastic. Yes. My name is Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at Hoagie_OW. And much in the same vein as Kojima, I've got announcements I'm going to make, and I'm just going to be posting videos obscured by my hands in front of them until the actual announcement comes out. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in to PvA Radio this week. This is the show where each of us brings one of the biggest gaming news stories to the table. Then we have an in-depth discussion about it. Consider it your collaborative audio feature article or your CAFA, if you will. And Larry, what do we want people to do with that?
Find your neighbor, get a needle and some ink, and tattoo it to them, and also spam it in the chat. Yeah.
If you're a subscriber, that's our emote, CAFA, baby. And then if you can't watch us live over here on twitch.tv/PVA Radio every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, you can catch us on youtube.com/PVA Radio or on podcast services everywhere. We definitely appreciate you wherever you're listening to us, and leave us a subscription or a review, whatever you will. But until next week, guys, we love you and goodbye.
Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
The definition of insanity.
Would you like me to go that shortwave radio?